Thank you. Dobry den. And thank you for attending the Veeam presentation. So I'm Veeam system engineer, and I'm covering Southeast Europe. Bulgaria is my territory. Okay, so I own. I'm going to use the headset. I hope everybody hears me. We heard that it was not so loud during the first one, so now I'm using this one. They also make a movie with me, so it seems like there is a hunger of movies with me lately, because I had one this week in Bucharest as well. So that's my second movie this week. So let's start with an interesting subject, data protection. It's cool, data protection. And you are all customers, basically, right? So how many of you are using Veeam? Couple. Oh, that's half of room. That's great, great. So thank you for being our customers. That's the first thing I can say. For those who are not customers, I hope you will become one, because we have great things for you. So for my presentation today, I'm planning to start like making an introduction, and that will be short. And I hope Sofia will not get mad with me, because I'm going to use a couple of marketing slides, but that's 5 minutes, okay? Or 10. And then I will get technical. Because I'm a technical guy, I can talk with like bits and parts. And please ask questions. If you feel that something is interesting for you, please ask questions. Because, as I said, the second part is for Veeam Availability Suite version 9. And this is a product that is not yet released. That will be available in December. So we are going to talk about what's new. Basically, what's new from the product that we have today and what's coming in this version 9. So I will start with these marketing slides, okay? We are saying that Veeam is built for virtualization. And I'm here to say that with version 9, I think that will change a little bit. I mean, we started with virtualization in mind because virtualization transformed how the data center looks, right? So I think, is there anybody in the room who is not running any hypervisor, doesn't have virtualization at all? I thought so. So nobody. So that means everybody invested in like virtualization, right? So it helped you doing stuff better, right? Applications are running on the same piece of hardware inside virtual machines. And for that reason, when virtualization came into the market, it created like a challenge, because the traditional data protection mechanism or software were not able to keep up with the demand. So now, if something goes down, like a physical server, it can impact like multiple VMs, right? So multiple application goes down, and of course we can't afford that, because that costs money, right? So if something is not working, usually for a company that means money, right? People are not working, we cannot do our stuff. And I remember when, I'm taking just an example, the bank that I worked with, in order to give me like a loan, they had, every time I was going to the bank, they made me fill forms, right? Like paper forms. And today, if you wait that much to fill all these forms, to, I don't know, to get access to your bank account, is no longer, you cannot do business like this anymore, right? So everything became like digitalized, and now we're running inside virtual machines in a data center. And we want to protect that and to have availability. This is basically what we are doing, availability for the modern data center. So I'm just proud here to say that we reached the 10 million VM so customers are protecting more than 10 million VM with Veeam. So that's important. I think in that spirit, we grow a lot, and we grew to almost 2,000 employees for a company built in 2006, basically. So we are trying to enable always-on business. Always-on business means we want to have workloads, to have virtual machines running all the time. We don't want to have downtime, or if we have downtime, we should be able to recover fast. Okay? So for that reason, in the modern data center, we can do some magic. We can do some tricks. Because virtual machines are portable. Virtual machines are different than traditional applications that are running like on a physical server, right? So with virtual machine, we can do a lot of stuff. And when I said earlier that we are built for virtualization, that means we know how to do this magic stuff with virtual machines. So the goal is to have as high available virtual machine as possible. So we can do this magic stuff, protecting them and also recovering them. So we have basically three products. One is called Veeam Backup and Replication, which is doing backup and replication, and it doesn't say anything about the recovery. But let me tell you first that our main goal is recovery. So we want to be able to recover fast, because if you are doing a backup, there is no value in the backup, right? It's just a copy of your data. So it doesn't really have a value. The value of that data, of the copy, is becoming to have a value when you need to recover. When you lost the first one, the original data. In that moment, you need the copy, and you need it fast, right? Usually, this is the case. So with Veeam Backup and Replication, we do offer availability for the modern data center, and Veeam 1 is basically a monitoring and a reporting tool. So we start with the idea of having this product, looking how the protection is applied and how the things are, if everything is safe, or I have a problem. If I have a problem, I need to know, right? And then we figure out to add more into this product, into the monitoring and reporting engine, simply because if something goes wrong in the infrastructure, we can see that as well, because we have this integration with VMware, with Microsoft. So we know the virtual environment as well, so we can do the monitoring and reporting for the virtual environment as well. And because this is like a standalone monitoring and reporting tool, we have like a management pack that is available for System Center, and we call it Veeam Management Pack. It adds the functionality that is inside Veeam 1. You can have it in System Center Operations Manager, and for the customer that have already like this System Center Operations Manager, it's a really nice plugin, and it doesn't create another point of management for you. So let's talk about availability. So this is a marketing slide, and this is the last one. So legacy backup. What is, I'm having conversation with customers all the time, and they are saying, okay, so what are you doing? Availability. No, you are doing backup, right? What's the difference between legacy, backup, and availability? Anybody knows? I have a price. I will.
The difference is the availability always will be online. When you have some downtime, you can recover fast.
Yeah, that's great. Great answer. So you won. That's not the last present that I have. So with legacy backup, we basically start with, you're a technical guy, so I will start getting technical. You have, in order to protect something, you have to make a copy. And to make that copy, you have to do something like talk with that data, right? You install an agent. This is how legacy backup works. So if you need to protect something, you need to install something that creates that copy, right? And you install agents, and you have all this infrastructure that you have to manage now, right? So that also applies to recovery. When you try to recover something, you need somebody to listen to you to start basically allowing you to make the restore, okay? Today, we have availability. We need to be up all the time, and we figure out that this virtual environment creates it's a nice fit for having no agents. Okay, so the hypervisors today have plugins, APIs that can give us the data, helping us creating the copy of the data, and also help us doing the restore. Okay, so we don't have to install agents. We don't have to maintain that. We just plug into the virtual infrastructure. So availability for us give us these options to protect everything that runs in a virtual environment without having extra management. Okay, and also, as I said, the tools, the magic stuff that we can do with virtual machine, like for example, vMotion, right, or live migration if we are talking with Microsoft infrastructure. So who knows what vMotion does? Nobody. Go ahead. You won already. A vMotion. What's a vMotion operation?
Migration ability of VMware.
Yeah. So what can you achieve with vMotion?
Live migration of virtual machines.
Live migration. So a virtual machine can change like the physical box that it's running, going to another physical box, right? So that makes the virtual machine available, right? If I want to change something on the physical box, I just migrate to someplace else. It's the same thing with storage, right? If you want to change the storage where the virtual machine is placed, you can do like a storage motion, right? So now imagine for our availability, what we can do with storage motion. We can change the location of where the data is placed, right? And online, without interrupting or shutting down the virtual machine. So we want to upgrade to availability, and we are saying that we do provide availability, this availability for virtual environments. So the first thing that, like set of features that are in the product and help us to achieve our availability goal is basically high-speed recovery. So we want to make things faster when we are doing recovery. And how can we do that? We have Veeam customers in this audience. So I would ask, is there any Veeam customer that knows what instant recovery is? Nobody. Any non-Veeam customer knows or wants to have instant recovery? Non-Veeam. Okay, you can say because there is nobody else. So, are you using instant recovery? Why? Because it's fast. So, what we are doing for fast recovery? We can do this magic stuff, right? So we create the copy, and in order to recover very fast, we are mounting the backup to the production host, and we are starting the VM from the backup. Okay? So the VM is starting. We can register it. We present the data as an NFS data store for VMware. It's simply like that. We create like this mount point, and we register the VM, and we start it. So now it's working. The VM is working. So you just detected that something went wrong, and you just started the VM from the backup. And then what? you can migrate it, right? So you just recover a full VM from the backup. Not having the data copy, like restoring usually means you have to take the data from the backup and do this transfer to the original location, right? And usually you have to do it offline with the service stopped, right? Now this simple trick helps us just to recover full VM. And please stay in the room for Graham. He's from Exagrid, and he can tell you why we can do things like very, very smart with Exagrid, simply because usually when you start this VM from the backup, it gets slow because the backup it's stored in usually in a slow type of media, right? Not if you are smart when you are doing this stuff. Usually we compress the data because we want to store not big amounts of data, but small amounts. So we compress, we do deduplication, we do all this kind of stuff, and now we need it to power on the virtual machine. So we have to decompress, we have to rehydrate the virtual machine. So that can get slow. Stay for Graham because he will tell you what they can do to make it really fast. And instant recovery is covering for us this need of having to restore a full VM. What about parts of that VM? For example, a file or an email. Do you need to restore a full VM to recover one file? No. He said no. He said no. So I have a present for him as well. Just want to encourage you to answer my questions. So it's basically we are storing the backup we are storing as files. And the cool thing about it is this is not just a file. Traditional backup have this catalog that it needs to build where the information is placed, right? In order to be able to recover. So we create these backup files have all the information needed for restores. So if you want the metadata, it's inside the file. So that helps us doing two things basically. One is to just look into the file and being able to recover. And because we can look into the file, we thought, okay, let's give you this option, this GUIs, this graphical user interface, to look into the file and pick whatever you want. So it's just like browsing with Windows Explorer. We call them Veeam Explorer because they explore like a Veeam file, okay, and shows the content. And you can see whatever you want, like files and also application items. We have Explorer for Exchange, for SharePoint, SQL, or Active Directory. And there is something new coming. I didn't put it on this slide because I have a separate one for the new integration that we have. So that gives us, if you want, the tools to recover files, only parts of the VM, right? And also application items. So our Explorer for Exchange, for example, looks into the EDB file and shows the content. The inbox is whatever, right? The calendar item, so you can restore whatever you want. And when we are performing the restore, we are talking with Exchange, for example. So with Exchange Web Services. So we can recover a particular email to any Exchange server in the world if you want. And any mailbox. And the second capabilities that we have in the product is basically trying to minimize the loss. So to be very fast, we minimize with high-speed recovery, we minimize the recovery time objective. With the data loss avoidance, we have the tools to minimize the recovery point objective. To reach to push the availability to the limit. So with data loss avoidance, we have support for backup appliances. Like I said earlier, Exagrid. We have all the tools needed in order to make the copy very, very frequent. Okay, so that means when you want to recover from the backup, you have a really recent copy of the data. Okay, so we can transfer through the WAN links with WAN acceleration that allows us to create like backup copies faster, and we do support some snapshots. So we can offload, we can create like a snapshot from the virtual machine, but offload this process to the storage, because the storage usually today is like very intelligent and knows how to create these snapshots. And we just use the storage capabilities to create these snapshots. And verified protection is actually my favorite, because whenever I'm talking to a customer and they said, I have backup. Okay, are you sure you have backup? Usually the answer is yes, of course I'm sure. Okay, there is only one way to be 100% sure that your backups are working when you are trying a recovery. Do you know what that is? Testing. You said first, you get a prize. So yeah, testing. How many customers are testing every backup that they make? Why not?
1%.
1%. So why? Why so few are doing the test? Time consuming and complicated. Okay? And basically for us, it's really easy. And we automate the recovery process because we can do the instant recovery, right? And we can check. We can go through the virtual machine and check. Did the virtual machine started? Yes or no? We receive this heartbeat with the hypervisor saying, okay, the virtual machine is running. And then we can test like the network, right? We can send like a ping command. Is it answering to ping? Yes. So the network is good. And then if we know that inside that virtual machine there is an application, we can talk with the application, right? So we can talk with a SQL. What do you do with a SQL? How do you test a SQL server? A simple query, right? So we can do that simple query. And at the end, when we finish, we give you like, we notify you and we say, okay, look, this is working, or if it doesn't work, we tell you what, right? So you are 100% sure that this data, if you perform the test, it's basically recoverable. So Sure Backup, Sure Replica is our technology to ensure, to guarantee that we can recover and eliminate the risk of data not being able to recover. And my second favorite feature is the virtual lab, which is basically leveraging the engine for the verified protection. So we thought, usually this is not traditional for a backup software, right? Or a backup. You create a copy and that's it. And now we thought, okay, so if you create this copy, basically, whenever you need a copy of your data, you already have it. So you don't have a new copy. You don't have to do a new copy to create a new clone. Simply because we can use it from the backup. Whenever you are trying to do like a test environment, you are on the safe side. So with all these capabilities, our goal is to bridge the availability gap between what is possible and what you want to do. Okay, so we do not tolerate data loss, and we promise you that we can reach this RTPO, which is recovery time objective plus recovery point objective under 15 minutes. That means you are very close to high availability, right? So it doesn't matter what application you are running, if it's in a virtual environment, we can do that. So this is basically on the grand schema what we can do for you. And I'm going to enter this V9 product features that we already announced. And through this year, we started back in May to announce what's coming in version 9. We usually do that for every release. And currently, the product is available in a private beta. So what you can do is ask a Veeam guy, me, if you want to get access to this, I can help you to get access to the software. I don't think we will have a private public beta phase, so we will get out with the general available on December, with GA version in December. So we started to announce the integration with new storage from EMC, with Cloud Connect for the replication to a cloud provider, with on-demand sandbox, with what I told you earlier about this test environment that you can provision from the backup. If you have like a modern storage, now you can do it from the storage snapshot. So you don't actually need to create like this backup copy. You simply use the storage snapshot, which in most cases from a lot of vendors can be like instantaneously done. And enhancements regarding the NetApp integration. And here it is. We have in version 9 an Explorer for Oracle. That means you will be able to have Oracle databases protected with no agent installed in the virtual machine. But when you are doing the recovery, you have this nice GUI that allows you to see your databases, and you will be able to recover very fast. For this one, I have a slide because it's one of the nicest features that we have in version 9. Also, a lot of enterprise enhancements now for the Veeam customers. You are using the Veeam backup server to, usually it's an RDP connection to get access to the console. Now we have a standalone console that can be installed everywhere, anywhere, and you can basically connect to it and launch the product, connect to the backup server. Advanced state support, a lot of the enhancements regarding the target for our backup, including support for any kind of deduplication appliance. But Stay for Graham, as I said earlier, he will tell you why exactly and what can you get from them. And the last one, scale-out backup repository, which I think is a really great feature, especially for environments where you don't want to micromanage like the repository for the backup. So for instance recovery, I had a special slide. I inserted it when I was earlier in the room, and I thought this is a good idea to explain how the things are working with recovery. Okay, so when you do recover, the first step you need to do is basically to find your copy, to find your backup, and to find to start the transfer, to copy the data from the backup to the original, to production. And the third step is to restart or to start this copy of the data after it has been copied. So as we are basically talking about finding the backup, it takes minutes. And the copy process, it depends on the size of the data set that you are trying to recover. So it can take hours. I know customers that are waiting days to recover petabytes of data. And of course, the restart is also like minutes. So with the instant recovery, what we identify, this is basically the longest time that we have to wait. And we managed to swap step number 2 with step number 3, because we can do this mount from the backup, and then we are doing the copy process with the storage view option, right? Or live migration. And it doesn't matter how much time it takes, right? Because this is online, and the virtual machine is running, and your phone is not ringing anymore, right? So in the technical terms, this is what we are doing. creating this mount of backup file as an NFS data store. We present the hypervisor, which is able to register the VM and start, right? And then it comes the live migration. So for version 9, we are talking about enhancements. Instant recovery doesn't change much. For Explorers, we enhance the functionality in Explorers, and let's get through this because it's. I would say that the biggest one is the Explorer for Oracle. So for Active Directory, now we support group policy, object restores, DNS records, and configuration partition. We can restore that as well. For SharePoint, I think it's a really nice feature, the option to do a full site restore. So we can do that. It was not possible with version 8. And with SQL, we can do now table level restores for SQL databases, which I think offer more granularity in recovery operations. Explorer for Oracle give us basically the ability to go and look into what's inside an Oracle database. So we can do this by having this GUI, right? And look at this setting that I have here for the, when we are doing the copy, the backup, right? It's, we need credential for the Oracle database in order to do one cool stuff that is available for SQL. We can take the logs from Oracle database and we can offer like a really high available Oracle database. And I'm talking here about to transfer the logs periodically from the Oracle database to a backup destination. So we can backup logs faster. Yeah, let's say this backup job that protects the Oracle VM is scheduled for once per hour, okay? We can transfer the logs every 10 minutes or 15 minutes or even faster in order to recover to any point in time for the Oracle database. So, and we are also able to truncate the logs. We can copy them and we can also truncate logs. We do support also Oracle ASM, or Automatic Storage Management, for the Oracle database, so you will be able to recover in this environment as well. For Explorer for storage snapshots, I want to make things very clear because we usually talk about storage snapshot in two different ways. So the first is to, when we want to create this copy of a virtual machine, we need to do like a snapshot in the hypervisor, okay? And now when we are performing the data transfer, we are basically taking the data from the hypervisor and going to the backup location, backup repository. If we have like a modern storage, we can offload the snapshots to the storage. That means we are able to use like the power of the storage system to create this snapshot. That's a feature that is only available in our version Enterprise Plus. But Explorer for Storage Snapshot, that's a really cool feature that is available from Standard Edition. What it does is basically, if we know how the storage snapshot works, we can simply give you the ability to restore from the storage snapshot. Okay? So it doesn't have to be like in the backup file. So we have here really low RPOs if there is a storage that is able to do this kind of snapshot, and we simply recover from the storage snapshot. We don't have to go to the backup file and do these operations. And also enhancements for the remote offices and environments where you have a distributed architecture for Veeam. So when you need to recover with an Explorer, for example, a data that is in another site, what we are doing in version 8 is basically mount that file to the backup server. Now we can have like a local mount server, and we can set up this property for a specific repository. We can say, okay, use this mount server which is locally, and when somebody is trying to do this granular recovery, use that mount point because it's faster to have the mount locally. So we reduce the van traffic and speed up the recovery, basically. Also, we have the direct NFS. That's for the environments where the data stores presented to the hypervisor are through NFS or file protocol. Now, we do support, when we create this copy, to just go to the file server, if you want, to take the data directly from there. So we do have now an NFS client that can connect to the NFS server to basically create a copy. Now, this is something that was not available in version 8, but in version 8 we had for the block environment, where you have your data store presented through Fiber Channel or iSCSI, we had this direct connectivity, okay? And we do not license this feature, by the way. And one more thing that is coming for version 9, and it's called Scale-Out Backup Repository. So I'm going to ask the Veeam customers today, how many repositories are you currently using? Only one? That's confusing for me. So this is no, or this is yes?
Yes.
This is yes. So this is yes, and this is no, right? I'm always confused. Okay, so only one. That's usually, you can have as many as you want. If you have Veeam, we don't license how many are you using, right? What happens if you are running out of space with that repository?
You create a new one.
You create a new one.
Yep.
Okay. And then you have to redirect your backup to the new repository, right? Because one backup job, here on the left, those small circles that are spinning are the backup jobs. And these are the repositories. So basically one backup job can use only one repository, right? If you want to use a different one, you have to reconfigure that backup job to say, look, go to the next one because there is no more space on the first one. Okay? So with the scale backup repository, what we are trying to do is basically simplify things. And we can, let's say, I will say, virtualize the repositories. Basically have one scale backup repository that have in the backend, like extents. Okay? So with this, what we can do is basically to put all the backup job using this scale-up backup repository, and in the backend to set a policy how these extents are going to be used. And we have two options available. We say one is based on data locality and one is performance. Just want to give you a couple of ideas how these policies get applied. So when you define this scale-up backup repository, you can say whatever repository I have in the backend, you can place the data on them. But if you choose like data locality as setting for this scale-out backup repository, whenever we create a backup for a virtual machine, we place it on one extent, and we create a full backup, and then all the increments will be on the same extent. So that's data locality. And performance can have a different, will make things in a different way. Whenever a backup job is going to create a full backup, that will go to one extent. All the incrementals can be placed on a different extent. Okay? And you can set for example, for this repository, I want to have only incrementals stored on that extent, okay? Just to give you one warning, we do not, so one extent is a failure domain if you have data locality set up. That means if that fails, we don't have any backup for you, okay? Everything is in one extent, no more at that extent. We basically lost all your backups for that particular VM. And we can create a new backup, like the next time we have to run the backup job, it redirects to a new extent that has enough room and can host this kind of files, like full backup, okay? But the idea is to simplify management and to have data automatically placed in the backend through a front end that is basically now the scale-up backup repository. And to define one scale-up backup repository, it's really easy. You know that we are doing next finish type of wizards, right? So you just have to say a new scale-up backup repository, then you have to give it a name. It shows you the extents that are available. That's basically traditional repository, like you have them in version 8. So you can pick one of these, and it has an advanced settings here, and that's the property, if you want, for the scale-up backup repository. And by the way, I have to make like a comment here regarding how we store the backup files. In version 8, we are storing a full backup. We create one file for everything that is protected by that backup job. Okay, so if I have one job defined for several VMs, it will output one backup file. Now in version 9, the default setting is changed. We will use per VM backup files. So we will create one file for each VM that's in the backup job. That will help us speeding the performance for the restore operations. You have this option to use like version 8 per job backup file, or now you have this option to use per VM backup files. And you have this option to perform a full backup when required extent is offline. If something goes wrong with that extent, basically the next time we run the backup job, we will create a full backup for that VM on a different extent. And this is the settings for policy for how we want data to be placed in backend. So data locality or performance. And if you choose performance, then you have all these extents that are part of the scale-up backup repository. And you can set, for example, for one of them, click edit and say, I want on this extent only incremental backup files. So just to a comment here, why is called performance? Think of this. So you can have usually a full backup takes a lot of space, right? So you can host that on one extent that have a lot of space, but I don't know, maybe SATA drives, which are not very fast, right? And all the incrementals usually do not have, like, the size is small, and if you want to restore to the latest backup, you probably need like a full backup chain, like the full backup and all these incremental that are till the point that you want to recover. So that will generate in the backend read operations from the full backup extent and also read operations from, so we can benefit from multiple repositories in that way, so it can be a little faster when we are just doing the recovery or when we try to read the data from the repository. Question? Nobody? Somebody wanted to ask a question? Yes? Or no? Go ahead.
Is it possible to automate by performance to tell for each backup repository, then the next one, 4 backups first initially, so that we have the data, 4 backups in different repositories. Like for example, I want backups of backup job 1 on both first and second repositories in case my first repository dies.
So, okay, I understand the question.
I have availability for repositories.
Okay, so the answer is you can do this sort of configuration, but just remember that, so you can have multiple software repository, scale-out backup repository, okay? With one, if you choose data locality as placement rule, everything, all the full and incrementals go to one extent, okay? If that extent goes, like it's filled, no more free space, it can go to decide to another one, another extent. But we consider this as a failure domain for the data locality. That means if that is gone, your backups are gone. So you need some sort of protection. If you are using like standard drives, I don't know, make some RAID and yeah, protect this space that we are going to use. We do not create a copy. Like if you put a backup here, a full backup, we don't create a copy of that file on another extent. You can do that if you want with a backup copy job. Okay? But we do not, we consider the extents as being available. Okay? If something goes wrong, what you can do, and for example, if you put one extent in maintenance mode, we can take care of the data replacement. So we can copy whatever is on that extent to other extents. Okay? That can host this kind of files.
What is the policy to detect if the repository is down?
I'm sorry?
What is the policy to detect that this repository is down?
What is the policy?
Yeah, how do you detect that the repository is down? And after that you mark the other one.
You add these repositories in the Veeam backup and replication console. And
if the repository one is in failed mode, after that you have to make on the second repository full backup. How you decide that repository one is dead?
we try to access it.
What is the mechanism?
We try to access it. Basically,
During the back, I mean, when you start the backup, it's accessing the repository, and if that repository is completely died, move to the other one.
and if it dies while we are doing a backup, that backup will fail. Okay? So,
we perform next day.
yes, exactly. Next time it's scheduled to run. If you are in like a middle of a backup job that is running, okay, and one extent that it's used by this backup job dies, what happens to the backup job? It fails, and it gives you this message that he cannot complete due to a repository failure. But next time it runs, if the software is able to determine another extent that can host this backup file, then it simply fix it and it redirects this job to a different extent.
But if it works for a little bit, let's say for half an hour, let's say system update, and during that time the repository was started for some reason. After the repository is doing like that, what will happen? It will start again to run the job there, or this job will be dedicated to the second one.
If you create, it was redirected to the second one, it created a full, and now the first one is out, right? It came back up. It will continue to use the second one.
The second one.
Yeah. I mean, this hosting now a full backup for the VM, you have this option of, yeah? So I think the answer, it depends. But if you have like this option to create a full backup next time it runs and the extent was gone, so it can choose the second one, and now it comes, if data locality is the policy, then it simply use the same extent for all the incrementals. If the performance is, and you have another extent that can host basically the incremental files, then it can use a different extent.
And what will happen with the files that are on the first one? When you start using the second one, these files will be removed automatically when you start using
No.
the next machine?
If it comes back up, what happens to the file? That's the question, right? So if the restore point didn't expire, it will be like recovery points for us, and we will keep them until they expire. I'm sorry? Restore points, no. Let's say you have the previous restore points are not available to do restores, but when the extent comes back up, it will be like all the available restore points, all the restore points are there, so we can still recover.
So when you start restoring some machine, you have the option to choose from multiple machines.
Yes, of course. Just like we are doing now with the standard repository. You can choose whatever restore point you have available. Good. I don't know, how am I in time? I have to speed up. Okay. Speed up. Just 2 words about tapes. You can use tape. Now we have a lot of enhancements regarding tape. We can stream multiple jobs to one tape. We can use, we call this, I'm trying to speed up and I cannot find my words. So we can use, the only requirement we had in version 8, if you want to use a tape, is to have the Windows driver. Now, we can use unknown libraries without Windows driver, basically because we can use native SCSI commands to talk with the library. So for that reason now we expand. You can use even tapes that you previously couldn't, even though I don't think there are so many without Windows driver. And yeah, this is the setting basically. For one particular library, you can simply say use native SCSI commands, do not use the Windows driver. And basically, I'm really close to the finish with Cloud Connect replication. Just a couple of things. In version 8, we can use like service provider to move backups, right? You can just add a cloud repository and you can use that. With version 9, we'll introduce another thing that is, in my opinion, a really, really cool feature. We can replicate now to a hardware provider, to a cloud provider. What is required from your side is basically to talk with a cloud provider to say, okay, I want to replicate these VMs to your cloud platform. And what they can do is basically define like a hardware plan for you and to sell basically that plan. And you can use DR into the cloud very, very easy. We make 2 things possible. One is full failover, which doesn't, for me, it doesn't, it's a nice feature, but let's say it doesn't move but every time when you are doing like a DR, the main challenge is the networking, okay? So network has to be planned, and you have to move IPs, or depending on connectivity, it's kind of, it can be a nightmare if you are not doing the things right. So what we are doing here is we try to make things as easy as possible for you. So if a cloud provider offer you this service, you can simply start replicating to the cloud provider environment without having to change anything in your environment. We deploy like a couple of things. One is able to do this, we call it a network translation engine, I think. And it's basically helping you to not having like a layer 2 connectivity. So basically we make the connectivity really easy. You just need the IP for the service provider. And in the same time, that appliance would be used if you want to have like a partial failover only moving a couple of VMs or a couple of services to the service provider. It will simply take care of the IPs and it will intercept the request in one side, it will pass to the other side, and basically your VM appear to you like it's running in the same environment, so you don't have to change anything. And for me, that opens the door for a really interesting scenario when you need more computing power for your VMs and you don't want to buy it because it's, let's say, maybe you need it like in a seasonal way, just on the last day of the month. So now, because you have this replication in your cloud provider and he can run your VMs, if you decide to fail over, you can simply fail over to gain access to more resources, execute whatever you need to do, and then fail back in a very nice and controlled fashion without having much change to your environment. So you don't have to change IPs or move the DNS records to another service provider or whatever. So I'm sorry if I took longer than I encourage you to subscribe to register for V9. It will be in December. We want Santa Claus to come with the products. Well, I'm pretty sure you will, if you register, you will get noticed whenever it's available. So thank you for being so interested in my presentation. And now I just need a couple of seconds to transfer the mic to Vera.